It's time to pick a side. The Border War is on the air with BG and TanMan.
Welcome everyone to episode 70 of the Border War. I'm the TanMan, joined here by BG. We want to thank you for tuning in. I want to invite you to like and share our page on Facebook as well as Twitter at the Border War. I'm at TanMan3264. I know that's confusing. BG hates it whenever I do that.
I don't know why you can't just change it to something more memorable.
I told you because it won't
those
let
numbers mean anything?
It won't let me put Border War at the end. It stops at Border Y. We've been over this.
Okay.
He is at BG_Border War. And you can also reach the show as well as get your picks in, which we'll be doing later on, through our email at carolinaborderwar@gmail.com. So let's get started, BG. Not a great football weekend. Let's just put that out there for either one of us.
No.
The NFL is king, so we'll start there. Before we get into our box and jump in, let's take a look around the league because we're at the point now where every team in the league has gone through at least a quarter of their season.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you've overreaction Monday after the first season or after the first game. We talked about that, and even really after the second. I mean, there's if you lose that first game, you feel like the world's going to end, and you win the next game, you're happy they won. But there's just nothing worse than that 1-1 record. Like you're just like I don't know. And then half the teams in the league feel like they have a tie already. Thought you guys were going to end up with one. I guess you would have preferred that.
It's only by the man upstairs, I guess, that we didn't get blown out. But we'll talk about that here later on.
As the league as a whole goes, I mean, some teams, I guess, we could start talking about that have really underachieved according to like expectations. The two teams that jump out to me that I think really, I didn't think one of them was going to be all that great. I didn't think they would be this bad. And the other team I thought was one of the better teams in their conference. One in the AFC, and that's the Raiders, sitting at 1-4 under new first-year coach John Gruden, his second time being a first-year coach, I guess. And then the Falcons. And the Falcons sitting at 1-4 and just blown off the football field this week. Didn't look like they even belonged in that game. I think you and I sat here last week and said we still thought they were the best team in that division.
Yeah,
we were wrong, man. We were wrong.
Atlanta is the one team right now that after Sunday, going into Sunday afternoon, I thought, okay, this is their chance. They've got an explosive offense. I mean, they're putting up points. That's not open for debate. Going into the matchup at Pittsburgh's defense has been suspect. They let Ryan Fitzpatrick throw for 6,000 yards on a Monday night a few weeks ago. Oh, man, this is tailor-made for the Falcons to explode here.
You would think.
And they just flat fell on their face. I agree with you about Oakland. I can't believe that. But if I'm going to find someone who has underachieved to this point that I think can get back into the mix in the AFC, I'm looking right at the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're 2-1.
Well, they feel like they're getting their traction under them.
They're 2-1. Cincinnati leading the division right now at 4-1. James Conner has he's carried the load so far, but he's not Le'Veon Bell, and they're going to get Le'Veon Bell back at some point. Now, whether or not that winds up ultimately being a plus or a minus, I'm going to err on the side of a plus until I see otherwise. And they just looked fantastic Saturday. The defense, again, explosive Falcons offense. Their defense, much maligned, answered the bell Sunday. And on the NFC side, I'm going with the Green Bay Packers. I think the Falcons at 1-4, I think they're done. I hate to say it, they're my Super Bowl pick. But you're looking in that division with New Orleans and Carolina. I don't know that Atlanta could really stop either one of those teams when everything's on the line. So I'm going to go to the Green Bay Packers. They're the team that is underachieved, in my opinion, so far, that's going to get back into the mix because at some point, Aaron Rodgers is going to get healthy. And at some point, their wide receiving core is going to get a little healthier. And Aaron Rodgers with just about any wide receiver core sounds like a recipe for success to me.
Well, in a related question, I'm wondering about teams that are off to a really good start. And so let me give you a couple of teams, and let's talk about whether or not you think these guys are paper tigers. Okay? They look great. It's not going to hold up. So let's start with the Cincinnati Bengals. First place, a 4-1 record. They've won 2 games in a row. They've scored the most points in that division by about 10. They're giving up about the same number of points as the Steelers, the difference being only 10 points. I mean, think about that. The Steelers in last place have scored 143 points. The Bengals have scored 153 points. In last place, the Steelers have given up 133 points. The Bengals have given up 130. Almost identical stats.
Yeah.
Obviously, those points distributed over 4 or 5 games can look different. But I personally don't think the Cincinnati Bengals are going to win this division.
No, I don't think so either. I'm still going to lead Baltimore, Pittsburgh to come out of the NFC North.
I love, too, that the Browns win their second game, and it's not a story. The Browns are going to win 5 or 6 games this year. Don't you think?
Oh, yeah. But now I think they've got like one of the hardest schedules left. I think I saw ESPN put out
well, after last year's...
They've got one of the hardest schedules left.
Well, after a perfect season last year, they should have been given a difficult schedule. Yeah. And in the NFC North, you said the Packers are going to pick up steam here. What about the Bears? The Bears sitting at 3-1. We both love them.
Look, I think the Bears are going to be... I said last week, last week, week before last one, I think the Bears are going to be there all the way to the end.
Playoff team, yes or no?
Papa.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to say yes because
both of us picked them to finish last in that division. Is that correct?
I'm going to say right now, probably. I'm going to say right now the Bears are a playoff team because the East is only getting 1, the West is only getting 1. I think the NFC South is going to get 2, so I think the NFC North is going to get 2 as well.
Now, Panthers fans, don't get upset. We're going to talk about whether you're for real or just really lucky here in a minute.
Yeah. Well, look, I want to talk about luck. The man they hit a 63-yard field goal Sunday to win. I don't know that I don't think anyone has ever seen that. A 63-yarder to win a game.
There probably haven't been but about 40 or 50 of those in NFL history, period, let alone to win a game.
BG, right now the Panthers, they sit at 3-1. They're in the division with the Saints. I'm going to ask you, we've talked about some underachievers. We've talked about overachievers in episodes past. Should we buy or sell on the Carolina Panthers right now?
I'll tell you. Well, I guess let me ask you a question on that. If I say buy, what am I buying? That they're a playoff team? That they are a playoff contender?
Look,
I think it's very likely the Panthers are a playoff team at this point.
That's what I'm saying. But, you're overreading into the question.
Well, that's what I do with vague questions.
That's not a vague question.
When
you hit the playoffs,
question. It's a poorly written question.
No, it's a perfectly written question.
I wonder why you say that. It's almost like
because
you wrote
the question. That at the end of the season, when they come playoff time, the Carolina Panthers are going to be one of the handful of teams that you think are going to be in the mix to win a Super Bowl.
No.
Okay.
No, I do not think they're going to be in a mix to win a Super Bowl. I think that I think it's very likely they're even a 10-6 team. I still think that they could have some problems with New Orleans. If they give up points to New Orleans, the one thing the Panthers can't do is outscore you, right? If their defense has to show up. That being said, New Orleans, now given they were playing the Redskins on Monday Night Football, which will make anybody look great, but they do have problems too.
Yeah.
They're not the team they looked like they were last night. I don't think either one of these teams is really a Super Bowl contender. I'm looking at either of these teams playing the Rams in Los Angeles. That's a big fat L.
Yeah. You look at the Panthers. Now, we've talked week 1, 16-8. Now, that score's probably a little bit closer than what the game actually was, but they couldn't put the Cowboys away. They came back on Cincinnati, and they basically let the Giants. The Giants are terrible. Let's get that out of the way.
Yeah, it seems to be the case.
They let the Giants come all the way back.
Right.
And take the lead. And again,
a lack of intensity.
And again, needed a 63-yard field goal to beat the New York Giants.
At home.
At home. They played 3 or 4 games at home. 4 of the next 6 for Carolina are on the road. And we're talking road trips at Washington this week, of course. They're going at Philadelphia. They're going to Pittsburgh, and they're going to Detroit. Detroit is not. I mean, that's not an easy place to play. We've seen the Patriots go up there and get drilled. The Lions have beaten the Packers at home. Man, I'm gonna say sell. I'm with you. I'm gonna say sell on the Panthers. I'm just not sold that that this team is built for a deep run in the postseason.
And again, we're not being homers here. I mean, I think both of us would admit right now they're better than both of our teams. But look, they're not. The Panthers are a good football team, but unfortunately,
they're
the Rams
good team, not a great team, not a good team.
But the Rams, they may be a completely
right now it just looks like the Rams are. They look different than everybody else, and I hate to keep going back to nobody can beat the Rams because then it turns into the kind of NBA discussion you have. Well, they're really good. Well, they can't beat the Warriors, so they must be trash. But we're asking the question: should we buy Carolina as a postseason contender? Not a postseason maker, a postseason contender. I'm going to say sell. They've got New Orleans twice in the last 3 weeks of the season.
I think the thing about the Saints, I'm just looking at it here. I mean, the Panthers have an elite defense. I think anybody would admit that. The only team in the NFC that has given up fewer points is the Chicago Bears, who has an elite defense. The Panthers' defense is really great, but the Saints have scored 180 points in 5 games. The Panthers have scored 91 points in 4 games.
Look, Carolina is in a division with New Orleans, who wants to win in shootouts, with Atlanta, who wants to win in shootouts, and Tampa Bay, who wanted to win in shootouts until they set Ryan Fitzpatrick down. To me, they just are built differently than those other two teams.
The Panthers feel like they have to win a very specific game, right? And that game doesn't always get played.
Nah.
That being said, if it's an outdoor game in late December, I mean, it does cater to the Panthers' style.
Are they going to win? Are they going to beat New Orleans or the Rams in a 38-35 game?
No, I don't think they've got 38 points in them. And I mean, a team like the Chicago Bears, I think matches up pretty well with Carolina. I mean, Trubisky's a more typical NFL quarterback than Cam. I mean, I think the Bears defense could give the Panthers a pretty good bit of trouble, whereas the play calling for the Bears is a little more creative. Although, again, I really do like what Turner has done in Charlotte. I mean, it's more innovative than it's been the past few years. But it just feels like Cam or bust, right, on offense. If Cam can't run the football, everything else falls apart.
Yeah.
And it's just not multifaceted enough for my taste.
All right, we're going to move on to the NFC East now, where we both reside.
The 0-for-4 NFC East. Every single team losing. The Redskins still in first place, but it sure doesn't feel that way.
Well, I was going to say, you guys are in first place based on a bye week, it looks like.
Yeah.
Give me your thoughts on the game. We'll start with you guys. Give me your thoughts on the game last night, real quick, because we still got a lot of ground to cover.
Embarrassing, completely unprepared, coming off a bye week. I have absolutely. There's one positive, one out of that entire thing, and that's the Redskins' defensive line is going to be really good in a year or two, maybe even this year.
Yeah.
Deron Payne is the real deal. Jonathan Allen is the real deal. Mike Ioannidis is the real deal. They've got some serious ballers up front. Our defensive secondary, man, I would have left them in the Superdome. I don't know if you saw this. Josh Norman was trying to do the flipping jersey exchange after the game. He couldn't even get his shoulder pads and his jersey off. I don't know. He gets benched. You put his replacement in. The guy gets up a 60-yard touchdown on the first play. Look, I get it. I texted you last night. I said, man, it's a bad night to be the road team in the Superdome.
There was not going to be anything that y'all could have done that was going to slow that down.
I'll tell you what might have helped some. Covering receivers. Even trying to. Those dudes To the point last night, there were guys on Twitter that don't have a dog in this fight that was questioning whether that whole thing was staged. Our defense looked so bad that people thought we had been ordered to stand down. Like, I don't have an answer, man. I was disgusted, and I'm tired of it. It's been happening in Washington on Monday nights on big stages for years and years and years. And I watched the press conference afterwards, and I'm sick of Jay Gruden telling me it's his fault.
We know it's your fault, Jay.
I told you.
know.
I told you after both of those 2 wins, I'm like, man, hold off on this. They're not a good football team. I picked them to finish last in this division for a reason. I don't think they're the New York Giants, although it wouldn't surprise me if we split the series with the Giants.
The Giants are a game and a half back from first place, and they sit at 1-4.
We let our best play caller go become the head coach, where in Los Angeles for the Los Angeles Rams, he's sitting at 5-0 right now. Who knows what's going on? I say it all the time. The stuff that matters in the NFL happens in the office. It happens at practice. It is the culture in that locker room. Don't tell me New Orleans is that much better player by player than the Washington Redskins. There's something else wrong there. That was ridiculous. Disgusted. I'm done.
The Saints have a wonderful head coach, and you guys do not. They have
a
Hall of Fame quarterback, and you guys.
No, we don't. And Alex Smith looked terrible last night. But again,
but listen, again, like I told you last night, there's nothing. Drew Brees is on the verge of setting the all-time passing mark. Look, man, there's nothing you guys.
Well, what does that have to do with Alex Smith, though?
But my point is, there was nothing that
we
game
could
was
have scored points.
That game was never going to be close.
Well,
it was just tailor-made for a blowout.
Well, and then in that case, what you're saying is that you don't have a good football team, and so that's all I'm saying.
No,
because I know, man.
No, I'm saying
there are teams that could have gone in there and given them a fit.
One night, New Orleans would have beaten just about any team in the league like that. It was just going to happen, man. It was going to happen. They would have beaten us like that. They would have beaten the Packers. They would have beaten the Bengals. Anybody other than maybe the LA Rams, they would have beaten like a drum last night. You're being too hard on the Skins. At least you have a coach that will stand up after the game and say, it's my fault, and take responsibility. You could be a Cowboys fan. Jason Garrett could be your head coach, and he could stand up there and try and convince you that punting on the other side of the 50 in overtime,
let me tell you what,
was a good idea.
You know how much I hate the Cowboys, right? I was angry for y'all. That was because I'm telling you, and I know you were watching the game feeling the same thing. As soon as they trotted that punt formation out, I was watching it with my little boy. I said, they're going to lose. This is it. That's it. That's the game. Why not just unreal? Unreal.
I've tried to take a step back and understand, okay, the defense has played pretty good. Not great, because the Texans had gotten down inside the Dallas 5-yard line 3 times, and the defense stood up and forced a field goal. So it's not like Houston wasn't able to move the football. Right. They averaged 6 yards a play. So I kind of get the idea that the defense has answered the bell all night long. We're going to pin them back. We're going to make them pick up 60 or 70 yards to try and kick a field goal. But there's just no excuse, man.
Yeah.
There's no excuse, because that was a gutless call. They played that football game. Jason Garrett played that game for a tie. And with what was left? 5 minutes?
Right.
5.5 minutes left. If there was a minute left in the ball game, I get it. Okay, I get it. But there's more than enough time to come back down the field. Garrett played to tie, not to win. If that is not the prototypical Jason Garrett move, then I don't know what is. On the other side of that, again, Dak Prescott has become a constant whipping boy
regressed again.
Well, he says that. Everyone says that. He's become the whipping boy. He's thrown 4 interceptions so far this year, and you want to know what? All 4 interceptions have come off balls that come off of receivers' hands.
Right.
They make gloves now where all you have to do is put the glove within 6 inches of the ball, and it sticks to it, man. You have 9-year-old kids making one-hand catches.
Right.
And we've got professional receivers that are getting paid good money, and they cannot catch a football. DeAndre Hopkins had almost as many receiving yards the other night as our leading receiver does, Cole Beasley, for the entire season.
Here's the thing, though. I told you before the season, and you knew this. I mean, that you have no one to throw the ball to. No one.
Well, if you listen to Jerry Jones, we haven't had a number one receiver in years.
Well, that's a crock, and you know it, and I know it, and he knows it when he says it. I don't know. Sometimes I think Jerry either says things just to see what happens when he says them, or maybe he's absolutely insane and doesn't even remember the 90s. I don't know. You're right, though. Look, sometimes the only difference between the Cowboys and the Redskins, to me, is you feel like that sometimes the dysfunction works for you guys and it never works for us. Right now, it's not working for anybody in either of those cities.
We look across the NFC East.
I think it's the Eagles' division to lose.
You guys are at 2-2. We're at 2-3. The Eagles, surprisingly, are at 2-3.
They don't
and the Giants,
look good, but I don't think Wentz's leg is 100%.
I don't think so either. The Giants at 1-4. They're a game and a half back, BG. So I'm going to tell you.
And we said it last week. I mean, what
the East is up for grabs. I don't care what anybody says. Philadelphia. This is not the same Philadelphia team that was around last year.
An 8-8 team may win this division.
8-8, and I'll be honest, 7-9 winning this division is not out of the question.
Not impossible.
So I'm going to ask you: the Washington Redskins get to 8-8. They win the NFC at 8-8. What has to happen?
I think to win the division at 8-8, they need to probably sweep the Giants and split with the Eagles and the Cowboys, and that seems dicey right now. I don't feel comfortable saying that any of these teams are. If I could, I'd just give our playoff spot to another team in the North, maybe the Vikings or the Bears, whichever one finishes third, and just not have one, because none of these teams look anything like they belong on the field with playoff teams. Yeah, no, and I feel like the Eagles are a good team that's playing poorly. I think the Cowboys and the Redskins both just feel like mediocre football teams. I don't think we feel like we're at the basement of the NFL, but we're certainly in around the line of the bottom half. Like we were joking about the Hornets last week. If you're better than the Hornets, you're a good basketball team. If you're worse than the Hornets, you're a bad basketball team. It feels like that with the Redskins right now. If you beat the Redskins, you're probably a pretty good team. Because the Redskins are good enough to take a bad team, right, or a team that's struggling, like the Packers, like the Cardinals, and just put them through the floor. Mm. But you put us on the field with a good team, and we can't even compete.
Well, you've got a good chance to change that narrative this week, because this is huge for you guys.
No question, and it's going to be an ugly, muddy, if it's
at you guys' stadium, it's going to be ugly and muddy.
I threw that in there just for you, because I know you love to talk about our field.
Love the big chunks coming out of the field. To me, the Dallas Cowboys are probably going to finish somewhere in that 7-9, 8-8 mark. I think that they could get back into it and win the NFC if somebody
win the NFC?
NFC East.
I was like, whoa!
I think that ship has sailed. I think the Cowboys can get back in it if somebody steps up to catch the football. I don't care who. It could be.
Does it need to be somebody on the roster?
I don't care, man. If the beer man can catch balls in the upper deck at Cowboys Stadium, let's
Been a little disappointed. Michael Gallup has done nothing. Nothing. What's he got? 4 receptions on the year.
They've got to shore that up. But bigger than that, they've got to protect Dak Prescott. They've got to give him time to find these guys.
But are we both really? Well, aren't we just saying though that we think the vast majority of both of our franchises' issues lie off the field? That's what I'm saying about the Redskins.
No, I think ours is. I think our biggest issue is on the field. He's got a red head, and he wears a headset and he claps a lot.
That's not on the field, though. That's what I mean. He's not a player. It's not talent.
Yeah.
In other words, it's yes.
Like I said, I don't think it's not out of the question, but they're just not good. Speaking of not good, real quick, we're not going to break down 63-3. But the Clemson Tigers Clemson, listen, they went up to
beat
Wake
up
Forest.
Wake Forest.
They handled business.
With more fans in this, look, I've been to that stadium a couple of times. It's a large high school facility, and Clemson looked like they had about 35 or 40,000 fans there. Wake Forest looked like they might have had about 15,000.
My question to you is, after the close call with Syracuse, a couple games earlier on in the year, they didn't look that sharp to me. There's been some talk with the talking heads from ESPN that of the 5 teams that are generally considered the playoff contenders right now, that Clemson could be on the outside looking in if Notre Dame continues to run the table. Have they poked the bear down in Clemson?
They being the media or us, or have they made Clemson angry?
Just in general, has the bear been poked?
I think, well, yeah, to a degree.
63-3?
I think so. But again, it's Wake Forest. And look, Trevor Lawrence played like we know Trevor Lawrence can play. He looked healthy. He was throwing the ball well. The defense basically, I don't even know if Wake Forest got across the 50-yard line except to kick that field goal.
It seemed like every time you flip the game over there's a running back breaking off a 45-yard touchdown run. They just threw 3 running backs over 100 yards.
I'll tell you what, though, we're going to get into the South Carolina game in a minute, and believe me, I'm glad we won. I'm not real. I don't think it means anything, but I had more fun watching that game than I've had watching a game in a long time. I'm in a room with a bunch of Clemson buddies. They didn't want to watch the Clemson game. They wanted to watch the South Carolina game too because they knew what was going on in their game. And I just wonder, what is it like to be a fan of a school who's so good and your schedule is so bad that you are literally disinterested in one of the 12 or 13 times a year you get to watch your team play? They had no interest in watching the game at all. None. I would hate that. I would hate that. I like winning, but who wants to watch that?
As North Carolina basketball fans, we run into that a handful of times a year where we play teams that we know are, we're going to beat this team by 40 or 50 points.
Yeah.
It's fun. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. But you get more opportunities to play them. You play more games, and
right.
I'm just saying, these guys, I won't call them hardcore Clemson fans, but they just, we flipped it over a couple times, checked the score.
Well, when the thing is 63-3, there's nothing. There's nothing to flip over. There's nothing to watch there.
NC State pose any threat to this this team at all? They're doing some kind of thing where they're going to stay dead quiet until it's time to fire the cannon and run down the hill. Then they're all going to yell really loud. Why does Clemson need gimmicks at this point? Just play the game. You're marketed. You're out there. Everybody knows what the paw looks like. You're orange.
Yeah.
I don't get that. That feels South Carolina-ish to me.
It's hard to. Yeah, I've been down the NC State road before. I've drunk that Kool-Aid before.
No, I don't believe in NC State.
I don't believe
this
in
is
NC
their
State.
one chance this year to beat a ranked team because South Carolina most certainly is not going to be ranked the way I thought a couple of weeks ago they had the chance to be.
No, they're not.
No, so Clemson will beat North Carolina State. The only question is by how much, and that'll be their one ranked opponent. Whether or not the bear got poked, I don't think it matters. Here's the thing, though: this year could end up being unusual in that it looks like there are a handful of teams who do have a very good chance of going undefeated. Right? You may have more than 4 undefeated teams.
You could. I think West Virginia is the Big 12's best. I know Oklahoma's still got the one loss and run. I don't think a one-loss Oklahoma team is going to get in.
No, there's not going to. Not if we're talking about
but you're talking Alabama and/or Georgia is probably going to have one loss, that being to the other one.
To the other, right?
So you're going to keep. Are you going to keep that team out? You're going to keep Alabama out if they lose the SEC title again to Georgia, or vice versa. Then you've got Notre Dame running the table. Ohio State looks like they'll probably run the table. I would guess.
Think so.
And Clemson certainly. We both think that they
will.
Run the table. Like I said, to me Saturday was all about style points.
Yeah.
Because they see that we're not kind of standing alone on this thing now. We've got some company in this little group that we have, and so absolutely, man. They heard it. They heard it all, and they answered the bell.
Yeah.
Another big chance a couple weeks from now with NC State. But you guys, a game that lasted just shy of 9 hours from kickoff to the time.
Man, when that lightning delay hit with like 2 minutes left in the game, I was so mad. I wanted it to be over.
I was coming back home from Charlotte Saturday and listened to the game on the radio, and I heard the lightning delay hit, and I shook my head, man.
Well, yeah, and the thing
2 minutes. You can't play 2 minutes. I
was convinced we were going to lose because Missouri had the ball at our 48, or their 48. All they needed was a field goal. I don't know. I tell you one thing I'm tired of, though. I'm tired of hearing about how the rain helped us win, because the last time I checked, it was raining on both teams.
Jeez, man.
It rained on our offense too. Look, I don't know what it is about Missouri, but they cannot figure out. We are their Kentucky. They beat us up and down that field, man. They had twice the yardage. Drew Lock can't beat South Carolina. It's over, man. I don't know what that is. I'll take it.
Well,
but I am under no illusions that South Carolina proved anything to anybody Saturday other than they somehow figured out a way to win a football game.
The popular talking point coming out of this thing on Saturday, Michael Scarnecchia. He was like the last Steve Spurrier holdover.
Yeah.
He was the guy.
Of course, the old ball coach started tweeting heavy about it.
He was the guy, like every day after practice, he wouldn't want to talk about Connor Shaw. He'd go, Michael Scarnecchia is spinning it around.
Feels like he's been talking about him for a decade.
He's been out there for like 19 years. He looked
good enough.
He looked pretty good, man.
Good enough.
He looked pretty good. He stepped up.
3 touchdown passes, especially when you consider the weather and everything else that went on down there.
The rain. He stepped up and made some big throws on that drive. They could have easily just kind of piddled around and gave a long field, but Scarnecchia stepped up. He fired a bullet in there on that last drive to get him closer and give his kicker a much better opportunity to make
no question.
Big time throw there at the end.
And Brian Edwards. Let's give him some credit, too. Brian Edwards playing on what looked like about a leg and a half. Played a gutsy game. He's a baller. I still saw way too much mouth running from our defense. Just it looked like a paper wall trying to stop Missouri's running game. What did they have, 310 yards rushing in that game? I'm just so sick of it, man. Go back to the huddle and shut your mouth.
Look, I know you
it.
said before we got started that Muschamp had come out and said, basically in no uncertain terms, that
if Jake is healthy, he'll be the starter, and he looked good today in practice.
Should they go with Scarnecchia again this week? Even if Jake looks okay in practice, do you not just ride the hand this week?
Maybe so. Here's the only thing that concerns me, and this is what I don't know. I don't know if the idea is that, you know how this is, man. It's like the Nick Foles syndrome, right? If I was prepared for Scarnecchia to be announced as the A&M starter, and I was planning on coming on the show, if that was the case, and saying you can count out any chance he does that again. I think if Michael Scarnecchia started, he would have a terrible game.
He would have a worse game than some of the duds that Jake Bentley's given you over the last
the flip
11
side
or 12 games.
That's the flip side.
You're not replacing a Heisman Trophy candidate here.
Well, again, the only thing you can keep coming back at me with is that, I guess you think Bobby Bentley has naked pictures of Will Muschamp or something. I don't know, because because Muschamp knows that. Look, he's on thin ice with this quarterback situation. I think he has to think Jake gives him a better chance to win, or I don't see any reason he would start him.
To me, the play here is you've got a bye week after this week. Jake Bentley's got a knee issue. There's a really good chance you're probably not going to beat Texas A&M, no matter who's playing, right?
Right.
Why not just give Jake Bentley that extra week and make sure that he's healthy? Because the way I see it, I'm looking down the schedule. Making a bowl game is going to hinge on that trip to Oxford in a couple weeks.
Oh, no question.
Your defense has got some holes, and now Ole Miss is not a defensive juggernaut, but that team can put some points on the board.
And they will against us.
And they will. So you're going to end up having to outscore Ole Miss.
That's going to be if we win that game, it's going to be like a 38-35 kind of win, maybe 42-38.
To me, I'm making sure that Jake Bentley is completely healthy for that last stretch run, because you're going to need Tennessee, Ole Miss, and of course you'll beat Chattanooga. But you've got to have those games. By missing out on the Marshall game, unless you do what Florida State did last year and reschedule that to play Alcorn State at the very end, then you're going to need now. You're going to need Jake Bentley. Like I said, I'm with you. I don't think Scarnecchia is the permanent answer at quarterback. To me, this is more about taking care of Jake. I play Scarnecchia this week and let the chips fall where they may.
What you're saying makes perfect sense. I don't think that Muschamp has any part in his brain that thinks, well, we're not going to win anyway.
Yeah, well,
and I think that's why he's a football coach, and we talk about football.
That's why I'm here talking about it. He's there. Did he save his job Saturday? You think?
No.
Real quick. You don't think so?
No, I don't think it was that serious. I think, well, because we have to remember something. We're not talking about South Carolina's fan base making this determination. Ray Tanner was a coach. When he hired Will Muschamp, aside from some kind of crazy scandal or like a winless season or whatever, Muschamp was going to get 5 seasons. Period. Mm-hmm. Look, it popped into my head when we were talking about the Braves last session. The Gamecocks overachieved last year. They might have overachieved the past 2 years, really. Muschamp's only really got 2 full recruiting classes down there. And I think you start to see glimpses, J.C. Horn being a really good example, of the kids he's bringing in. Right now we have 4 4-star cornerbacks in this year's class coming in. Mm-hmm. All of them are going to report in January. There are still players on this team that don't need to be on an SEC team. Now, I do think there are some questions with discipline. I think there are questions with play calling. I don't think it's a perfect situation, but I think it's crazy. If we're talking about should Will Muschamp be fired in his 3rd season when he's overachieved the previous 2. That's crazy.
This was supposed to be the year that South Carolina won 9-10 ball games. Those are your words, not mine. You
right?
Said,
no, I said that was their ceiling.
You said that, not me. You said that.
No,
maybe
you're changing my quote a little.
9, maybe 10 wins. That's you. That's not me. I'm looking at this thing. If they drop the game at Ole Miss, or God forbid they lose to Tennessee, and they fall to 5-6 and miss a ball game in a year where 8 wins should have been, was generally viewed as the floor. And 9 or 10 was possible. And then you top in next year, that schedule is loaded when you've got Alabama coming to town to open up SEC play. They have not answered the bell basically on almost any opportunity in a big game under Will Muschamp. I'm not saying that he saved his job. Listen, I'm not saying he saved his job at the end of this year, but next year they're not. I don't see any way that they're going to.
Well, then this game didn't matter.
But what I'm saying is, I don't think next year that they were going to hit that 9 or 10 win. They weren't going to sniff that. But I think next year when they go 6-6 or 7-5, I think it bought him another year after that.
I get what you're saying. Here's the thing.
It's not going to cost him this year, but I think it would have costed him after next year.
Here's the thing that I have come to accept a long time ago, meaning last year sometime really. This is what South Carolina football is going to look like. I mean, this is it. If you fire Will Muschamp before he's had 5 years, I'm not sure who South Carolina fans that want that to happen think they can go get. I'm sick of hearing about Lincoln Riley and how we could have had him. We've talked about it on the show.
If you beat Cyril, you could have.
Big game Bob Stoops would have gone to him in a heartbeat and said, man, I'm on my way out. You wait another year and it's a done deal. You got this job. That's the end of that. I think Kirby Smart would have come to Columbia. And I'm going to go out on a limb and tell you this too. If Kirby Smart had come to Columbia, if Georgia had kept Mark Richt, then yes, maybe Georgia wouldn't be doing what they're doing. But I think South Carolina football would look a lot like what it looks like right now with Kirby Smart as the head coach too. There is not a tradition of winning. There's not a culture of winning. I don't know how you change that. And as much success as Spurrier had, people want to just forget his first 5 seasons down there. This is what it looked like.
Pretty average.
This is what it looked like, man. He couldn't find a quarterback. The quarterback he did find, he started him because the other guy got kicked off the team. Connor Shaw wasn't his starting quarterback.
Yeah.
He had watched him in practice and decided that wasn't his quarterback. So, 7 wins, 8 wins. Yes, I thought that they could win 9 games this
5
season.
wins. They're staring at 5 wins this year, man. Let's get to the picks. Last week, we both go 5-4. I improved to 33-21. You are 27-27. So congratulations on getting back to 500.
Shut up.
Georgia at LSU. LSU 7.5 points they're getting this week. You taking the Dogs or the Tigers down in Baton Rouge? 7.5.
Man,
The clock is ticking, my friend.
that is tough. I'm gonna go with LSU on this one. I thought they were gonna get their coach fired at the beginning of the season. I'm buying in on them now.
I'm going Georgia. I'll give you the 7.5. Georgia's going to beat them by at least 2 touchdowns down there. That thing's not going to be close. Washington at Oregon. The Huskies, the only glimmer of hope the Pac-12 has, and it is a longest of long shots. They're at Oregon. The Ducks are getting 3.5. Give me Oregon. I think Oregon is going to win. They're at home. That's a tough place to play, and they're going to shut the door on the Pac-12's chances at a playoff berth.
I agree with it. I think they at least keep it that close, even if they lose.
The Aggies, number 20, coming to Williams-Brice. This is a number that shocked me to no end. The Gamecocks only getting 2.5 at home against Texas A&M.
I don't know. Is it a freshman quarterback on the road thing? Is that what Vegas is thinking? I'm taking the Aggies all day on this. This is a
I'm giving you
no-brainer.
2.5. I really would be surprised if this one is really that close. Here's an interesting one. West Virginia, number 6 in the country, the Big 12's undefeated team. Probably, in my opinion, the best shot to make a playoff from that conference if there is one. Going to Iowa State. Now, we've seen teams go to Ames, Iowa with playoff hopes, with BCS title hopes on the line, and get dashed. This one is a primetime game in Ames, and the Cyclones, are getting 7 points. I'm going to go West Virginia. I'll give you the 7 points here. I think West Virginia is going to outscore them.
That's a tough one. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Iowa State covers. I don't think they win, but I think that the atmosphere will be right for West Virginia to struggle a little bit.
If this was a Thursday night, I'd go Iowa State.
Yeah, it does have that feel, doesn't it? Thursday night, yeah. You're right. I'm still going to stick with it.
Here you go. The Hokies at North Carolina. North Carolina is getting 6 points. I don't care if you give them 60 points. I'm taking Virginia Tech. I'm done with this nonsense. North Carolina football is getting ready to croak, man.
Hokies.
I'll put the Tar Heels down for BG. On to the NFL slate. The Carolina Panthers at the Redskins. This one, big-time implications, my friend. Big-time implications. The Redskins are the favorite in this one. They are giving up a point and a half.
That.
I don't get that one. Judging by your tone, I assume you're going to take the Carolina Panthers.
I am taking the Carolina Panthers all day long.
I agree with you. The Chargers at the Browns. I remember the Chargers going to Cleveland a few years ago, this being the only game the Browns won. Cleveland won a couple since then, literally just a couple since then. They are getting a point and a half at home, 1 o'clock. Give me the Cleveland Browns to win this one outright. If you're going to give me points, I'll take them.
I'm going to go with the Chargers in this one. I think the Chargers win this game by a few points and put Cleveland back into reality just a little bit. The Chargers they have. I thought about them as my underachieving team. They have a very talented football team. They just haven't played very well.
The Bears at the Dolphins. The Dolphins are getting 3 points. The Dolphins, one of the surprise teams of the league. I
tried to tell you Ryan Tannehill was a real deal. Nobody wants to listen.
I don't think anybody still is. Bears or Dolphins, man? You go.
Bears.
I tend to agree with you. That defense is the truth. Jaguars at the Cowboys. The Cowboys, they are getting 3 points. Jacksonville laid a massive egg in Kansas City.
Rough Sunday.
That was terrible. Give me the Jaguars and the points. I just don't see Dallas being able to come up with points on that defense.
I think, speaking of poking the bear, the Jaguars might show up angry with ill intent in this game.
Yep. And finally on the list, one of the hottest teams in football, the Chiefs at New England on a Sunday night. The Patriots 3.5-point favorites. Is this the end of the Pat Mahomes fast start?
No, I think the Chiefs win this game.
And I'm going to go New England Patriots. The Pats at home, they get the win. I'll give up the points.
I just told you they're not going to get the win. Now, why you would disagree with me?
Judging-
That's why you're losing the picks.
Judging by your record, I don't think anybody should listen to your picks.